Hi, Karen.
Hi, can you do me host now?
Yes, I just did that. So do you want to do a quick test?
It's working now.
Oh,
Yes.
it is. Okay,
Let's
very good.
but still,
Okay.
let's see.
So we're
No,
going to
you
start.
have not made me co-host. Please make me co-host.
Okay.
I can't share my screen.
Okay, we're going to start now. Welcome, everyone. You want to do a test?
Yes, please. Just a minute. I just want to see if the music is working. Okay, it is working. Fine. No problem.
So we have four speakers today. We're going to be talking about music, and I'm very excited to present four wonderful, very knowledgeable presenters today. Our first speaker is Karen Sarhon, and she was born in Istanbul in 1958, and she has a master's in social psychology and applied linguistics. She wrote her thesis on Judeo-Spanish language, and she retired from her job at the university and founded the Sephardic Culture Research Center. Karen heads many projects in the center, and the Centropa Oral History Project, the Mafrim Project, Ladino Database Project, and the Judeo-Spanish Turkish Judeo-Spanish Dictionary Project. And she's the founder and singer and presenter in the group Los Pasados Sephardes, the most authentic group in Turkish Sephardic music. So please help me welcome Karen.
Hi everybody. How are you? I hope you're all well. I see some very familiar faces. This is really nice to see you all here. How's the new era in the States going? Has it started well, I wonder? So today we're going to speak about the Turkish Sephardic music, really. I will give a general overall kind of summary of what this music is about. So if you allow me to share my screen with you. Okay, here we are. Right. So Turkish Sephardic music. Now, this music actually is what can be called as ethnic music. It's the music of the Sephardic Jews who have been living in this country, on these lands, the old Ottoman Empire and then modern Turkish Republic, for more than 530 years. So this beautiful instrument that you see here is called a kanun. We're going to get back to it in a bit. It's got one of the most beautiful sounds any instrument can have. So let's see. In the beginning, when I say the beginning, it's just 1492 and the decades that follow 1492. The Jews brought with them the language, culture, and music of 15th century Spain. Now, the musical tradition in 15th century Spain was the romanza. Now, keep in mind that the romanza, that was it. I mean, that was the kind of music. It was monotonal. There was no harmonizing yet. The guitar had not been invented yet. No flamenco at the time. So anybody who tries to do flamenco with this music is not being authentic, because that's not what it was. Especially the part that used to exist in Spain. So what was the romanza? The romanza was an epic poem. It's long epic poem. And when you look at the romanzas that have been collected in books and things, It goes on, for example, once it starts with telling a story, there's a very simple melody and it tells a whole long story. I mean, in the books that I have, one romanza would be like 5 pages long. So that meant that probably that people used to get together and everybody would sing a verse and the story would be completed by the time their time was over, let us say. So the melody is very simple. It's the same melody that goes on and on through the song, and it's a long epic poem. Now, in the 13th and 12th, 13th centuries, the romanza was usually telling the story of heroes, of knights that went to war and their ladies were waiting for them in the castles, and it took a long time for the guys to come back. So there was a lot of song written for the guys before the guys came back. So here's an example. This is an example of 3 sisters, and somehow 2 of them are married and the third one has somehow lost her way, let us say. So you can imagine what that means. And her father, he's very ashamed of this daughter, and I don't know why, but he sends her to the island of Rhodes. Now, why Rhodes? Don't ask me. So she goes on her way to Rhodes. Okay, she fell asleep. And then a knight goes by and he sees her and he gives her 3 kisses, 1 kiss on every cheek, and then 1 to the heart. And of course, you can imagine what happens afterwards. I mean, the story goes on and on and on and on. But let us listen. This is an example of what a romanza would be like.
Tres hermanicas eran blancas de rosa y ramas de flor. Tres hermanicas eran, 3 hermanicas son. 3 hermanicas eran, 3 hermanicas son. Las 2 eran casadas, blancas de rosa y ramas de flor. Las 2 eran casadas, la una se te perdió. Las 2 eran casadas, la una se te perdió. Su padre con vergüenza, blancas de rosa y ramas de flor. Su padre con vergüenza, a Rhodes envió. Su padre con vergüenza, a Rhodes envió.
Well, as you can see, this goes on and on and on. It's the same simple melody, and the verses just go on and on and on. Now, with this kind of music, they came to the Ottoman Empire. And in the Ottoman Empire, down through the years, Sephardic music was greatly influenced by Turkish classical music and all other musical cultures of the Balkans. So by the end of it all, it became an ethnic music of the Balkans. Okay. And a lot of songs appeared with themes consisting of love, gossip, jealousy, events of everyday life, and all interpersonal relationships and feelings. Now, the most important thing is that the language of these folk songs has always been Judeo Spanish. When you talk about folk songs in Sephardic music, you talk about the lyrics being in Judeo Spanish or Ladino. Now, I'm going to play this song for you now so that you can hear the contrast between the first song and this one. This one was obviously composed under the influence of Turkish classical music, and it has all the Turkish classical music elements in it. It's sung with a makam. The makam, I won't go into that. It's quite complicated, but just listen.
Para que quiero yo más vivir en este mundo. Para que quiero yo más vivir en este mundo. Millones morir más que sufrir, dolores de amor vengo a sufrir. Millones morir más que sufrir, dolores de amor vengo a sufrir. Yo te amo de corazón, mas no te puedo alcanzar. Yo te amo de corazón. Millones morir más que sufrir, dolores de amor vengo a sufrir. Millones morir más que sufrir, dolores de amor vengo a sufrir.
Now, as you can see, there's a big difference between the first song and this one, and also in the themes as well. So the more you go, the more you go into the Ottoman Empire, the more the themes of the songs are sadder, more tragic. You know, here he says, "Why do I want to live? It's better to die than to suffer the pangs of love, because she or he cannot get his or her loved one." So, now I would like to show you just a taste of what Turkish classical music is like. Now, normally in Western music, one note is divided into two. Okay, so you have do do diez re, or re bemol do, or C sharp D and D flat C. So here I will show you that in Turkish classical music, one note is divided into 9. So really what it is all about is that there is a comma of a difference when you're playing the different makams. Then you have commas of differences, and that's what you hear when you go so you hear the commas of differences. Now here's my friend, the Kanun player Günay, who is going to show you that he will be going from B to C. He
Malum
explains.
Türk musikisinde 9 komadan oluşuyor bir tam
9
ses.
commas.
Ben size şimdi bunların si perdesi üzerinde bemol ve diyezlerini göstereceğim 9 komayı. Şu gördüğümüz ses si.
That's a B.
Onun altında la var. La'yı sabit bir ses olarak aradaki farkı duymanız için la ve si olarak göstereceğim her komayı. Şimdi la, si natürel. Şimdi bir koma indiriyorum. İkinci koma. Üçüncü koma. Dördüncü koma.
You hear the commas of differences?
5. 6. Si bemole ulaştık. Şimdi natürele geliyoruz. Natürelden de diğer 3 tane diyez olan komalarımızı göstereceğim.
So he
La,
played
bir
6 commas.
komalık si diyez. Diğeri 4 koma diyez. 5 koma diyezle do sesine ulaşıyoruz.
So you
9 komalı
see,
Türk musikisindeki
so you see, he
sesleri
plays the
bunlar.
9 commas by moving the keys here. So it's incredible, and you have to have a really good ear to be able to hear the differences between the commas, and you have to be, raised in it. I mean, we were raised in it because 5 times a day we hear the imam singing the call for prayer. So really, and every time it's a different makam. So we really grew up in it. So it's not it's not that difficult. Okay, so besides the many original but anonymous compositions, there are also many melodies that are borrowed from popular ones of their day. So this is a very traditional thing in Sephardic music. If we like a song, we write lyrics on them, in Judeo-Spanish, and the song becomes Sephardic. It becomes ours, okay? So among the thousands of songs that were transmitted from mother to daughter through the years, there are certain melodies that have many different lyrics written for them, and there are also certain lyrics with many different melodies. Another aspect, now I talked about the folk kind of music, another aspect is liturgical music, and it can be divided into 2 or even 3 groups. Now, the first form of liturgical music can be seen in popular songs that are sung for Jewish festivals, Hanukkah, Purim, Pesach, etc. And these are songs that are not sung in synagogues. The lyrics are in Judeo-Spanish, which does not happen in the synagogue. And for example, let's hear an example, Purim Purim Lanu. Now that we are nearing Purim, so it's appropriate, I think.
Purim, Purim, Purim lanu, Pesach, Pesach en la mano. Las masas se están haciendo, los yapraques se están cociendo. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al. Purim, Purim, Purim lanu, Pesach, Pesach en la mano. La luna está diciendo a los nietos a limpiar polvo, cantones de techos. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al. Purim, Purim, Purim lanu, Pesach, Pesach en la mano. El señor Rabí dijo a las tías no comer pan 8 días. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al. Aman, aman, aman, aman, aman, el Dios bendito nos da más al.
Okay. Right, you hear now. This is when people got together around the table. In it's the fiesta, and it's a good way to celebrate Purim, and then after Purim comes Pesach. So there you go. So second part of liturgical music occurs in the synagogue. Yes, Jake, I see you've got the cover of the CD. Okay, so in synagogues, this kind of music has also been transmitted from generation to generation. The lyrics of Sephardic religious music have always been in Hebrew, but the melodies have been performed with the Turkish classical music makam. So these melodies had not been recorded, and my group and I realized that there were really beautiful melodies. And in 2002, even though it wasn't our specialty really, we decided to release an album of Turkish Sephardic synagogue hymns. And now we have even 2 albums. At least we have documented this music. Now, this is the only prayer in the Sephardic synagogues in Turkey that are sung bilingually, Hebrew and its translation into Ladino. So this is the only one though. No, there are a few kind of piyutim that are in Ladino, but mostly they are in Hebrew. But this is the only one that is sung every week, Enkeloeno, I'm sure you know the song, but let us just sing a little bit of it.
Enkeloenu, Enkadonenu, Enkemalkenu, Enkemoshienu. Non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mikeloenu, Mikadonenu, Mikemalkenu, Mikemoshienu. Ven como nuestro Dios, ven como nuestro Señor, ven como nuestro Rey, ven como nuestro Salvador.
Okay, you see, it's a bilingual, it's a beautiful song, and it is sung every Friday in the synagogues here in Istanbul. Now, the third group of liturgical music concerns the maftirim. Now, this group of hymns come from a tradition that originated in Edirne. And they are very, very specific. Actually, they are paraliturgical songs or hymns, if you like, that were sung on Shabbat after prayers were finished until Shabbat finished. So people got together in choirs and they sang these hymns that talked about Jerusalem and talked about God. And in the beginning, the quality of the poems were very high. The quality of the music was not that high. But later on, as people got, yes, exactly, Jake, that's the book. That's it. We have a whole book. Actually, this is it. It's a collection, a whole collection of 360-page book with 4 CDs and 1 DVD of the best 3 unfortunately, last cantors that used to sing these songs. You have, in this collection, you have about 5.5, 6 hours of hymns. It took me 6 years to finish. Yes, Jake, thank you. It took me 6 years to finish this whole collection. It was, I tell you, a very difficult kind of work, but still it came out beautifully. So for reading materials and music in Ladino, you can go to www.istanbulsephardiccenter.com. And no. we don't have time for this, so I will go on. Oh, come on, yes. This is our last CD, and Tangos Sefaradis del Dip del Baul, which, well, actually Sephardic tangos, but as I said before, some of the melodies we borrowed and wrote lyrics on them. And one of them, this Alper Almelek, this young man, was my student of Ladino, actually. And he's a very talented young man comes from a very, very talented family. And he wrote the music and I wrote the lyrics. And it's a very nice song. So I would like to sing it as my last song for you tonight. Istanbul mi amor, which means Istanbul, my love. Okay, here it is. If I can get it. Estambul de 7 montes, nos mira de sus árboles, la historia y sus flores, un cante de sus amores. Somos entornados por la mar, no podemos vivir sin nada. El Bósforo y las islas, una magia muy especial. Debe hunchar el vapor que se va por el Bósforo. Haremos que flote en el aire de Estambul. Estambul mi ciudad, llena de felicidad, un amor a eternidad. Estambul mi amor. Estambul de 7 montes, nos mira de sus árboles, la historia y sus flores, un cante de sus amores. Somos entornados por la mar, no podemos vivir sin nada. El Bósforo y las islas, una magia muy especial. Debe hunchar en el vapor que se va por el Bósforo. Haremos que flote en el aire de Estambul. Estambul mi ciudad, llena de felicidad, un amor a eternidad. Estambul mi amor. Estambul vivo, Estambul lleno, Estambul lucio, Estambul mi amor. Estambul vivo, Estambul lleno, Estambul lucio, Estambul mi amor. Estambul vivo, Estambul lleno, Estambul lucio, Estambul mi amor. Okay, so here we come to the end of my program. I hope I haven't overpassed my minutes. And good night to you all. So I leave it to you, Mark.
Thank you, Karen. That was wonderful. Our next presenter, I would like to introduce LeahAliza Lee, who has performed at the Michigan Festival of Sacred Music and the New York Jewish Music Festival, the Wayne State University Center for Judaic Studies, and the University of Michigan Frankel Center for Judaic Studies Symposium. And she has a lot of performing experience and very knowledgeable about music. So let's welcome LeahAliza Lee.
Unmute yourself.
No, I'm good?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a folk singer, and I see folk music as something for around the house in an afternoon, so we're perfect here. I see some familiar faces. I also see folk music as on the line between folk, the tradition, and fusion, what comes to us from the world we're in. So as my interpretation of folk is, I bring the tradition and I also bring from my culture, and I bring from the people around me. So my musicians, who I'll be playing on tracks, are from my community both locally, and that's Stefan Kukuruga on keyboard, and from my internet community, Kurt Hoover, great guitarist. We've been so busy doing guitar, I don't even know where he is. And what I bring together is the tradition and the reinterpretation. I'm going to start that with Konja Mia. Konja Mia is a traditional song, and I will bring you the traditional melody. And then I have a melody that came to me after I heard a guitarist strumming, he was just strumming some chords. And I developed the melody, and then I decided that instead of telling people what the song is about, I would include some English lyrics that give the poetic sense of the song, because I sing for a lot of audiences that don't know anything about Ladino, and I'm often told, that was beautiful, wish I knew what you'd said, even though I introduced the songs. So I took care of that in the combination for this song. Concha mía, chichec de mi cabeza, la luna me se escureció, la mar se hizo preta. Háblame, niña, con amor, mira que estoy en el fuego, se va a morir un mancebo, que no olvido nada de bueno. Yo juraba y decía que no ni más el amor, fue cabezando una morena que a mí me hizo inflamar. Concha mía, chichec de mi cabeza, la luna me se escureció, la mar se hizo preta. Háblame, niña, con amor, mira que estoy en el fuego, se va a morir mancebo, que no olvido nada de bueno. Concha mía, chichec de mi cabeza, la luna me se escureció, la mar se hizo preta. I lay beside your thorns and petals, I lay beside you on the ground. Moonlight sparkles on the water, you look away, your eyes so brown. Let me hold you, let me warm you, with this flame that burns inside. You will not let me tend your garden before the fire within me dies. I lay beside your thorns and petals, I lay beside you on the ground. Moonlight sparkles on the water, you look away, your eyes so brown. From this heaven I will leave you for a lonely mountain trail, to a place where I'll forget you and the love that fed my flame. Yo juraba y decía que no ni más el amor, fue causando una morena que a mí me hizo inflamar. I have a traditional favorite, Los Bilbilicos. The nightingale sings songs of love in a fragrant garden. Find me, my love. I'm waiting by the roses. Los bilbilicos cantan con suspiros de amor. Mi neshama, mi ventura. Mi neshama, mi ventura está en tu poder. La rosa enflorece en el mes de mayo. Mi neshama se oscurece. Mi neshama se oscurece, sufriendo del amor. Mas presto ven, paloma, mas presto ven conmigo, mas presto ven, querida, mas presto ven, querida. Corre y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame. Los bilbilicos cantan con suspiros de amor. I have an original song inspired by the modern fado fusion of Saka Afonso. It's based on the story of Solika Hathuel. It's called Sulika, and it's something that you can sing along with. It is the story of a teen girl. I'm a mom of a girl very close to Solika's age. So I was very moved by this girl and her devotion to Judaism. She lived in Morocco in the late 1800s. She was offered riches and a kingdom and a comfortable life if she would convert to Islam. And she said, Nasi, Hebrea nasi. Hebrea, quiero morir. At risk of death, she held on to her faith. I was born a Jew, and I will die a Jew. The chorus is, Nasi, Hebrea nasi. So for you, Nasi, Hebrea nasi. Nasi, Hebrea nasi. Nasi, Hebrea nasi. Hebrea nasi. It's repeated a number of times through the song, so you'll have a chance to get that. We taught you the candles, the bread and the wine. We taught you of God the One. We taught you to soar like the doves up above. We taught you to shine like the sun. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Brea, Nasi. You dreamed of your wedding, your husband and children. You dreamed of the hills and the trees. You dreamed of a home down the road from our own. You dreamed of sailing the seas. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Brea, Nasi. Please say what is needed to live. Please say what you need to survive. Please say what they want you to say. We do not want you to die. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Brea, Nasi. They cut you and said they would give you a chance. We know you and knew you hid fear. With your future before you and love in your eyes, you said, Ebrea, quiero morir. Ebrea, quiero morir. Daughter, we love you, we miss you so much. Daughter, we cry at your grave. Daughter, your memory floats among us. Daughter, we still hear you say, Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Nasi, Brea, Nasi. Brea, Nasi. Brea, quiero I'm a homeschool mom. My daughter's in college now. When we studied history, we read about the explorers, ships leaving from the coast of Spain and Portugal. And we thought, what if we lived in the Ottoman Empire, because our family had been expelled in the 1500s, and we're listening to hear what the merchants have to say about this very exciting turn of events. Listening to their stories of spices and tales of things like the tower in the sea, and how you can see the window in the tower, and in the window you can see the face of the siren of the sea. She calls to the sailors and the fishermen, and when they hear her from their boats, they begin to believe that the sea is made of milk, and their boats of cinnamon sticks. En la mar hay una torre, en la torre hay una ventana, en la ventana hay serena que a los marineros llama. En la ventana hay serena que a los marineros llama. Dame la mano, paloma, para subir a tu nido. Maldicha que duerme sola, vengo a dormir contigo. Maldicha que duerme sola, vengo a dormir contigo. Si l'amor era de leche, los porquitos de canela, yo me mancharía entera por salvar mi bandera. Yo me mancharía entera por salvar mi bandera. Si l'amor era de leche, yo me haría un pescador, pescaría mis dolores con palabricas de amor, pescaría mis dolores con palabricas de amor. Thank you.
Very nice. Do you have any more to share, or is that it?
I was told 4.
Okay.
I
Very
have to get the tracks, so thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Now, LeahAliza Lee. Our next presenter is
Oh,
Sarah.
actually, no, Mark. It's actually going to have to be Simone because my computer is frozen. You can see it's black. I need to reset my video feed. So go ahead. We'll be okay. My 5-year-old is she's a good sport.
Okay, very good. All right. Simone, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So
Uh,
Simone Salmon is a PhD student in ethnomusicology at UCLA, and she received her bachelor's degree in music and concentrations in music theory and harp performance from UCLA, and a master's degree in musicology from University of Oxford. She is co-president of the Special Interest Group for Jewish Music at Society for Ethnomusicology, and has done studies in various places, including Turkey. She plays the Turkish oud and she's a host for the radio show Los Bibliocos in Santa Barbara about music in Judeo-Spanish. I present Simone Salmon.
Hi, thank you. Welcome. I'm going to share my screen here for a PowerPoint, but I think that I'm no longer a co-host, so I actually can't share it.
Okay.
Okay. Discourses in European popular Jewish history highlight or place a wedge between Jews and Gentiles within society at large. Even when Jews are described as assimilated, the act of labeling a Jew differentiates him or her from the greater non-Jewish population, often positioning the Jew against the rest of the Gentile population. Post-Holocaust frustration has influenced the public to point to anti-Semitic reactions to Jewish behavior that inevitably separates Jews from the society once again. My intention in this presentation is to demonstrate the ways in which Jewish life was woven into the Ottoman cultural tapestry in practice and in memory, which I will show through the examples of several Jewish musicians from the late Ottoman era. The Ottoman Empire prided itself on tolerance. The government viewed the various nationalities residing within the empire as subjects of the Sultan, and after the 1869 citizenship law, and this drawing here is of the first Congress, after that law, every person born within the empire was considered a citizen. Ottomanism, a key tenet to the Ottoman Empire, meant that all religions and ethnic communities were to unite in support of their state, and civic Ottomanism meant cooperation between and across religions and nationalities in support of each other. Before the clamoring of nationalisms and the eventual fall of the empire, interactions between Jews and other subjects of the Sultan were akin to those between Jews and Gentiles in Germany before the interwar period. That is, the Jewish population was culturally assimilated into society and formed a significant portion of the urban musical landscape. Historically, Mevlevi lodges played a huge role in the music education of the different millets within the Ottoman Empire. Musicians and composers of the Ottoman court were diverse and shared religious music with each other, developing an Ottoman court tradition and influencing other musics outside of the court. The Ottoman court held close ties with the Sufi Mevlevi lodges since Mehmed Çelebi I became sultan, during which he employed many members of the order in official positions within the caliphate. Sultan Selim III frequently hosted Dede Efendi, a musician and composer from the Yeni Kapı Mevlevi Hanesi, for performances at the palace. Mevlevi music was essential to the existence and development of the Ottoman court suite. So I want to show you, just to remind anyone who may have forgotten, Mevlevi lodges is where you have the whirling dervishes. So this is just a portion of the sema, or the ceremony. You can see them whirling. So the musical suite that's being played during this is what the Ottoman court suite was derived from. So this suite is called the ayin. And here is just the structure of the ayin. Not super important right now, but we'll sort of get to it. Similarities between the ayin and the Ottoman court suite can be drawn in these ways. So here's the Ottoman court suite on the left, and the Mevlevi ayin on the right. So both contain taksims. In the beginning, a taksim is a improvisation, followed by peshrevs, and then we have bestes, which are vocal works. In the Ottoman court suite, an Ar Samai follows it. That's also it's a slow work with lyrics, and following that, the Yuruk Samai is an instrumental form that's shared between the two. Also, we have the Son Peshrev and the Saz Samai, both instrumental works with similar form. And of course, there is a Taksim at the end. The ney and end-blown flute is the most important instrument in the musical ensemble for a Mevlevi dervish ceremony. So many of the most famous Sufi composers were ney players, which we call neyzen. And one of the most famous ney virtuosos is Neyzen Yusuf Nagara Pasha. He's a Sufi composer who was the son of the sheikh at the Beşiktaş Mevlevi Hanesi. He actually was born there. I should have removed that. He was a musician for the Mevlevi Lodge, as well as a patron of Sultan Abdul Jamid at the court. And I guess it's also important to mention here, he worked for the Mevlevi Lodge. He was not a Jew, but he is important to this presentation. So here is Yusuf Pasha's famous Segya Peshrev, which is just one example of the connection between Islamic music and the Ottoman court, because this would have been played in both places. So here is a recording. I'll follow along with the mouse on the music. And here on the right, we have the same transcription of Yusuf Pasha's Segya Peshrev. And on the left is a transcription of a vocal rendition of his composition with lyrics in Hebrew. So I'll play one recording of that for you. Okay. So the lyrics were not composed by Yusuf Pasha. Rather, they were written independently in the late 16th or early 17th century by Israel ben Moshe Najara of Gaza. He was a prolific poet, Kabbalist, and rabbi, known for his piyutim, pizmonim, selihot, and viduyim and dirges. Najara practiced contrafact, studying his poetry to extant Turkish and Arab melodies in his collections. He was, of course, alive long before Yusuf Pasha had composed this Peshrev, but because contrafact was an essential element of Sephardic and Greater Ottoman music, Najara's lyrics were imposed on the melody in order to form a section of the Mafturim, which Karen, of course, mentioned, which is the Jewish paraliturgical suite. So this next slide. So we have a comparison of the Fasl, the Ayin, and the Jewish Mafturim suite. Like the Ayin and the Fasl, the Mafturim is also grouped by Makam, and it incorporates usul, which are rhythmic patterns, and art music genres. The Pizmonim are hymns that closely resemble the Turkish ilahi in that they are metered works about the virtues of God. And the Pizmonim in the Mafturim are in the forms of bestes and semais, corresponding to the bestes and semais of the Fasl and the selams of the Mevlevi Ayin. And the last Pizmon here, it's likely a Yuruk Samai because Samais are played in the order of slowest to fastest, which is Ayr to Yuruk. The 5 Pizmonim typically come from the Shiri Israel Be'eretz HaKedem, the most famous book of Pizmonim in Turkey. This book is often referred to as El Jonk in Judeo-Spanish, which is borrowed from the Ottoman word junk for a collection of folk poetry. El Jonk is arranged like a Middle Eastern diwan with poetic texts grouped by makam. So, a description of the performance of a Mafturim suite from Thessaloniki in the late 19th century by the singer adds that he placed a ses taksim, or a vocal improvisation, between the son peshrev and the morning prayer. I posit that there likely was and likely still is a vocal taksim introducing the first peshrev of the Mafturim, but that it was so customary that it was not noted in my sources, and I'm sure Karen knows more about this than I do because she wrote the book on it. This would correspond furthermore with the fossil and ayin, and of course, like the ayin, the Mafturim ends in prayer. And as demonstrated here, sometimes portions of the Mafturim were sung to melodies of Turkish songs, which in one documented case was actually a point of tension between a singer and a rabbi ignorant of the practice of music in synagogues as a whole, at a time of increased nationalism in Ottoman Thessaloniki. So the story here is that somebody was singing as part of a Mafturim choir, and then the rabbi stopped him and he said, "You can't be using a Turkish melody here. This is completely wrong to be using in this Jewish context." And then somebody said, "Well, don't you know that all of our melodies are Turkish right now?" And so, of course, that sort of shut the rabbi up. But this is a point at which tensions were very high between different nationalities in the empire. I just want to give you some more characteristics of the Mafturim. Of course, morning prayers and Quranic recitation take place at the end. Characteristics. So the Mafturim is purely vocal, though rehearsals may sometimes include an instrument like the kanun. And the reason that it's vocal is because traditionally it's performed on the early morning of the Sabbath, though today it's performed in the afternoons to get increased attendance. But on Shabbat, it's unholy to play an instrument, so people are singing. And it's for this reason also that the Mafturim is performed only by men, because the woman's voice, according to the Talmud, is indecent on such a day. So this prohibition was originally applied to the recitation of prayers and blessings, but is applied to female voices within the synagogue at this time. And there is no saz samai in the Mafturim because it's an instrumental form, and instrumental forms have been removed from the suite. So some other characteristics that I already mentioned, it's arranged in the form of a diwan, grouped by makam, incorporates art music genres. And the tradition of Mafturim originated in Edirne, which is an area of Thrace known to contain many non-Muslims. And Mafturim spread to bigger cities like Istanbul and Izmir in 1920 when increasing anti-Semitism drove Jews out after the government had attempted to eliminate Armenians and Greeks. And it was actually the same year that Isaac Seni, who's a musician that we'll get to later, he left Edirne for Istanbul. Some more characteristics about it being sung to Turkish melodies. Composers were generally trained by the Mevlevis, but Jewish Mafturim composers had both Jewish and non-Jewish apprentices, and performers would sing in ethno-religiously diverse choirs, as well as in performance halls and social gathering places outside of the synagogue. They borrowed from and performed with Mevlevi and Beşiktaşi Sufi orders. So, court musicians were Muslim, Greek, Armenian, and Jewish. They typically worked outside of the court in religious spaces, concert halls, or after the turn of the 20th century in gazinos, which were nightclubs owned by non-Muslims because they served alcohol. And while composers learned Ottoman music at the Mevlevi lodges, Mevlevi musicians attended synagogues in Izmir and Salonika to hear cantors such as Isaac al-Ghazi. So, Isaac al-Ghazi, he was respected by Jews and non-Jews. He was appointed cantor of the Central Synagogue in Izmir in 1908. And in 1922, that's when Ataturk captured Izmir. And there was increasing tension and violent clashes between the Greeks living there and the Turkish government when the population exchange also took place in 1923 between Turkey and Greece. And although this didn't affect those who were living in Izmir, it did affect tensions throughout the region between Turks and Greeks. So many Jewish community leaders left Izmir at that time because they were under suspicion for having collaborated with the Greeks against the government. So Al-Ghazi was one of those. He ultimately ended up at the Italian synagogue after moving to Istanbul. And it was at this time that he founded his Judeo-Spanish newspaper, which was called La Voz del Oriente. And he used that as a platform to promote modernization efforts and Jewish relations with the Turkish Republic. So there's stuff about Al-Ghazi. He was a prominent intellectual. He recorded in several languages. So actually here I'm going to play a recording of him in Ladino. This is the song Ayman Sevo. Can you hear this?
Yes.
Okay. So in 1932, Al-Ghazi performed for Ataturk in what is described as a musical contest between a Khazan, which is Al-Ghazi, and a Hafiz, which is the Islamic vocalist, and this guy's name was Hafiz Yashar. So although judgments of Ataturk's reaction to Al-Ghazi differed between the accounts of two men present, one of which was just a writer present, and the other was Al-Ghazi's so-called competitor, the bottom line is that Al-Ghazi performed for the leader while at a linguistic disadvantage to his competitor. Unexpectedly, he was gifted a signed copy of the Quran, concluding the audience. And the Quran had recently been translated to Turkish from Arabic and printed in the Latin script. Al-Ghazi actually helped in the translation of this. And Al-Ghazi and the Hafiz were the first two people to be presented with a signed copy of the new Quran. And this was considered to be a great honor. So, reading about this event, it reminded me of a story that I saw in Pamela Dorn's dissertation, in which she records the following folktale from a conversation that she had with a prominent record producer in Istanbul who had ancestry intimately involved in Turkish art music. So in it, a Jewish musician has to perform for the Sultan on the Jewish day of mourning. He decides to perform Hebrew laments, which are considered art music, and won't cause him to break Jewish law, even though they're in Hebrew. The Sultan enjoys the performance and gifts the man something of great valuable, though we don't know what that is. So my question here is, could this story be related to the story about Isaac Al-Ghazi? After the gramophone reached the Ottoman Empire in 1890, Al-Ghazi had famously recorded synagogue song, Ottoman art music, and Judeo-Spanish cantigas onto commercial 78s. And it was around the same time that Haim Effendi, who is a part-time cantor from Edirne, also recorded many well-known and modern cantigas along with synagogue song onto 78s at that time. Haim Effendi was raised in the Moftarim tradition and spent much of his musical life working in the entertainment industry, performing in nightclubs and touring extensively. So here is just a recording of Haim Effendi. I think I may have to skip a bit through the Taksim, or it might get a bit long. Okay, so this is from the Israel Folktale Archive. It's another story of a Jewish musician, this time Haim Effendi, performing for a ruler on a Jewish holiday against religious precepts. And in this iteration, it's the Day of Atonement, which is another day of religious fasting. So actually, it's Rivka Havasi, who's here right now, who wrote this. Haim Effendi's Los Angeles family, they say that he was summoned by Sultan Abdul Hamid to perform, and that they feared that he would never return once he entered to do his performance. And he had been gone so long, the public thought that he had died. There were publications in the papers about this. And legend has it that upon his release, he recorded and released a song called El Mentira de la Muerte, or The Lie About the Death. And no one in the know so far has been able to find Haim Effendi's recording, but it was recorded by my great-grandfather, Isaac Seni, and the recording is located in the UCLA Ethnomusicology archives. So I know that I've broken some PowerPoint rules about text, the amount of text on slides, but I wanted you to be able to see the translation as well. So here it is, and I will skip through part of the text theme. All right, so this song has also been recorded for archival purposes by other artists under the name La Carta del Superviviente. And an addendum to my original source mentioning the comments from the family reads that the lyrics were written by Dr. Simone Levy, who evidently wrote it under similar circumstances. So this framework seems to be a running theme in Ottoman Sephardic folktales. Which brings me to the last slide. The narrative of the Jewish musician being called to perform for his ruler, going against the odds, and being rewarded for it bears a striking similarity to the framework of very famous Middle Eastern story of Scheherazade. So Scheherazade is the narrator in and of the Middle Eastern collection of tales 1001 Nights. So in 1001 Nights, the Persian king Shahryar is so untrusting of women that he marries a new wife every day, takes her virginity, and proceeds to murder her the following morning. When Scheherazade is summoned to the king for marriage, she spins a tale throughout the night and purposefully leaves it on a cliffhanger so that he must allow her an additional evening to finish the story. On her second night, Scheherazade leaves her second story on a cliffhanger again, and repeats the process until nearly 3 years later, the king decides that he will not kill her after all and instead rewards her with a lasting marriage. So this demonstrates one last time the enmeshment of Sephardic Jewish culture with that of the surrounding Ottoman Empire. The Mevlevi Ayin, the Ottoman fossil, the Jewish Mafturim, Isaac al-Ghazi, Haim Effendi, Maimon Levy, and Scheherazade, they share this one thing in common, that they're the product of civic Ottomanism, rich with ethno-religious diversity and cross-cultural borrowings woven into the fabric of the Ottoman cultural tapestry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simone. That was very interesting. Our last presenter today is Sarah Aroeste. She's determined in helping bring Ladino culture to the new generation. An international Ladino singer, songwriter, author, cultural activist, draws upon her Sephardic family roots from Greece and Macedonia to present traditional and original Ladino songs with her unique blend of rock, pop, and jazz. She published numerous articles and essays about Sephardic cultures, preservations, and books. Please welcome Sarah Aroeste.
Aroeste, that's all right. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, great. I have a special visitor who's going to be joining me in just a few minutes. She is just finishing up some cartoons and snack time, but she will be with us shortly. This is the joy of homeschooling. I get to sing Ladino songs with my toddlers. So first, I'm going to share my screen. 1 minute. Okay, I'm working off a couple of different screens right now. So the images might be a little bit difficult on one of the screens, but you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Okay. So unfortunately, I cannot make this any bigger. So this is going to be the way it's going to have to look. I apologize. This young gentleman on the right is my grandfather. He was born in 1906 in Monastir, which is today Bitola in North Macedonia. And much of what I learned about Ladino music and culture comes from him. He came to the United States in 1912 during the Balkan Wars, and I owe so much to learning from him and his extended family. He was the oldest of 9 brothers and sisters. And this is my only remaining relative from Bitola, from Monastir, and she is currently 103 years old. This is my dear, dear cousin. She was my grandfather's first cousin, Rochelle Nahmias, and Ladino was her first language, as it was for my grandfather, and I'm so lucky to have her in my life because she still sings to me and my children in this beautiful language of Ladino. Ladino is very close to me personally and musically. I've spent the last 20 years performing in Ladino, and I want to share some songs with you right now. The first one is one that I wrote called Chica Morena, and in the background, if my video projection works, you are going to see video of my own grandparents back in Macedonia and also neighboring Salonika, Greece, where I also had relatives in the 1930s, before World War II. So this is silent black and white footage of their honeymoon back in the Balkans. And they traveled all across Europe. You'll also see some pictures of my grandmother in Venice and in I think there's one of her actually in the Colosseum. But many of the images are actually from Macedonia and Salonika. And I'm pointing this out because this song is about listening to the words of your ancestors to find your way home. And for me, this song was very autobiographical because I really do look towards my ancestors to think about my Sephardic roots and where I come from. And it should be noted that in this video, sadly, my grandparents survived because they were only visiting. They were living in the US at the time. But everyone else in the video did end up perishing in the Holocaust. So I wrote this song for them. la de cabellos largos, la de los ojos duros, ama de corazón contente. Tengo más de 1000 años, he atravesado mares y fronteras. Un día donaré a mi tierra que el calor de mi madre me espera. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. Soy la chica morena, a los reyes he seguido, subido escaleras de oro, casado con el mundo y vivido, pisaron los pies de mis hijos y las manos de mis hermanos, siguiendo la voz de mis padres, a topar la huerta de mi madre. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. Morena me llaman, blanca yo nací, de pasear galana mi color perdí. La la la la la la la la la la la la la la la Thank you. I'll let the video run out as I set up the next song, which is when I write songs, I use a lot of inspiration from poets and writers from the past. And this song is called El León Ferido, which was based on a poem by the great 11th century Judeo-Spanish poet Samuel Hanagid. He wrote a 4-line poem that said, when you face times of great fear, strengthen your heart. Even if you're standing at death's door, just remember, the lamp still has light before it's extinguished, and the wounded lion still knows how to roar. And I just always loved that imagery, and so I wrote a song around it to remind myself of times when I feel defeated, that I still have a lot of roar inside me. And for me, this also represents the Ladino language, right? A lot of people think that Ladino is dying and it's facing death's door, but this song is a reminder that we still have a lot of roar left. Cuando el mundo habla una lengua que no entiendes y tus pensadas no tienen traducción, cuando las palabras viajan a vagar y se pierden durante la transmisión. Cuando tu amante de la vida no es como lo encontrás y su color y sabor te son extrañas. Cuando tú vives tu día como un actor, el escenario está en la niebla. En los tiempos de grande apretón, enfortece tu corazón a filo si tú estás en la puerta de la muerte. La lámpara tiene luz antes que se mató. A filo si tú estás en la puerta de la muerte. El león ferido ainda sabe ramear. Cuando tú temes que esto es todo que tienes y no hay más llenas en lo prado de tu vida. Cuando tú demandas si ahora ya no estaré, si tú puedes tomar otra visión. En los tiempos de grande apretón, enfortece tu corazón a filo si tú estás en la puerta de la muerte. La lámpara tiene luz antes que se mató. A filo si tú estás en la puerta de la muerte. El león herido ainda sabe ramear. Thank you, thank you. So a lot of the work that I do is also bringing Ladino music to young kids and families. My daughter is here to join me, and I want to invite up Dahlia. Okay, quick. Okay, quick. Okay, she's coming. So I'm gonna set up this song, and I'm gonna switch instruments to a ukulele, which is not a traditional Sephardic instrument, in case you're wondering. But I use the ukulele and other instruments when I work with kids. I'm very proud of the work that I do to keep Ladino alive. Through a whole project that I started a few years ago called Hora de Despertar. It's a whole original album of Ladino songs for kids. And there is also an accompanying story book. And I also do write other children's books. This one is called Buen Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. I've got family albums for all the Jewish holidays in Ladino. And so much of the work that I do is to make sure that my own children, my own 2 daughters, grow up in a world where they are proud of their heritage and they know Ladino songs and they know how to speak Ladino. And so it's incredibly gratifying and fun for me to be able to sing these songs with them. So the song we're about to do is called Hora de Despertar, which literally means time to wake up. And we are going to learn this song together. The lyrics are very easy. Time to wake up, time to wake up, time to face the day, time to wake up. It's a brand new day. And for kids, it's actually the title track on my album. And it's all about the rituals of waking up in the morning. But for adults, it has a much bigger meaning. I wrote this also for adults to signify it's time to wake up. We have to open up our eyes and teach our children these beautiful traditions before it's too late. I do a lot of video work, if you haven't noticed already, with those 2 previous songs, but all of my children's work is also animated. So I have a whole animated music series you can find on YouTube. And I'm going to teach you the chorus of this song. All right. Okay, Hora de Despertar, it's going to go like this. Hora de despertar, hora de despertar, hora de aferrar el día. Hora de despertar, es un nuevo día. Okay, that's the chorus. Dahlia, it's your turn. Say hello to everybody. Hello. No, over here. Okay, we're going to sing this song together, but we're going to need your help on the choruses, and it'll be very clear when you should sing. Video is here. You stand here. Wake up, wake up, wake up. out there, young and older, I should say, we're going to close this out because this is being sponsored by our Sephardic family. So we, of course, have to learn how to say thank you and I love you to our family. So we're going to end this program with Mi Familia. Mi Familia. And the way we're going to say I love you to members of our Mi Familia is Te quiero bien. Can you say that, Dahlia?
Te quiero bien.
Te quiero bien. And we know that families come in all different shapes and sizes, so we can't possibly get to all the different members of our family, but we're going to say I love you to our daughters, to our sons, to our mothers and our fathers. And of course, if you have different members in your family, you can say I love you to any members of your family. Now you're going to try to get that to.
I can put that in.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say te quiero bien to different members. You have to hold that, honey, in your ear. And we're all going to sing along. And the most important thing to know about this song is that you also have to love yourself. So you're going to say at a very specific part, we're going to point to all of you listening. We're going to point and we're going to say yo, because you have to love yourself. So you're going to take your fingers and point to yourself. Why don't you show them, Dahlia? Say yo and point to yourself.
Yo.
Good. And then we're going to say tu, and we're going to point to someone else you see on the Zoom screen, and you're going to say tu. And then we love everybody in our family, and we're going to say nosotros. Nosotros. Okay, let's try it. I think you'll catch on really fast. Feel free to dance. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Hijito. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida criatura. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Te quiero bien, sos mi querida. Mamá, that's me. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Te quiero bien, sos mi querido. Quiero bien, sos mi querido, papá. Os quiero bien, sos mis queridos. Os quiero bien, sos mis queridos. Os quiero bien, sos mi querida María. Now yo, Now point to someone and say two, two, two, two, two, two, two, two, two, two, two, two. Thank you, our Sephardic family. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I pass it back to Mark.
Thank you, Sarah, and other speakers that were presented so many wonderful things today. This has been a wonderful event. And I would like to invite you all to our February 18th food event, where we will have Karen and Sarah and Susan doing some great presentations. Thank you again, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone.